I don't want to rule or conquer anyone. I should like to help everyone if possible. Jew, Gentile, black man, white. We all want to help one another. Human beings are like that.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the At Random podcast. I'm your host Alex, and joining me today is sexy fag smoking Andy over there in Belgium. How you doing?
Hello, I'm doing good. I'm always doing good. Did some yard work today. Feeling like a real man.
Real dad sort of stuff there.
Yep.
Finally gets a day off work.
Go and talk for the rest of the episode like this, because I'm a real man now. If you don't like it, I'll lick your anus, pussy. I'm not gonna.
All right, sir. All right, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to do that.
And Ali, how are you doing? You look miserable, as always.
Jesus, thank you.
Well, you just look sad.
You do look a little sad, though. It's good to see you smile.
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm
gonna say
tired.
something. Every woman needs to hear more. Ali, you should smile more.
Fuck off.
Isn't that something that pisses people off?
Yes,
Like,
it's
pisses
really
women off?
rude.
It's like when I tell
think
her to
it's a
relax,
compliment.
man. It's the best. Like, hey, relax. And she's just screaming at me.
Yeah.
We all know that telling an angry woman to relax works. We know that.
Yeah, we know
Scientific
that.
fact.
Because it shows that you're giving her attention in knowing that she's not relaxed, and telling her relax helps her remind that she should relax. At Random Podcast Tip, always tell your wife to relax.
And at Random Podcast, you will only ever get the tip. Hey, let's go. All right, so today we are doing, because of some recent news in the last week, we are going to talk about the Bubonic Plague. Do you know what's been happening in the world the last week, Andy?
No, I've been living under a rock.
All right, well, so we had that pandemic episode, I don't know, like 10, 15 episodes ago now, quite a while back.
Yeah, something like that.
And that was more modern pandemics. I think we briefly mentioned it, but we didn't really delve into it too much.
Mm-hmm.
This, again, it won't be like a super, super deep dive, but the reason this came to my attention was because this past week, a 15-year-old boy in the Western Mongolian province of Gobi Altai died of the plague.
Of the plague?
Yep. And 2 people in Mongolia last month, in June of 2020, also died of the plague.
How the fuck is that still around? Wasn't that extinct?
No, we're gonna
Okay.
find out. So, the reason he caught the plague was he hunted and ate this animal called a marmot, which is essentially it's the world's biggest rodent animal. It's basically an enormous groundhog mixed with a squirrel sort of thing.
Oh, I thought you were saying mammoth.
No,
For a second there, I
marmot.
thought you were saying that mammoths were still alive as well. Like I was like,
Dude,
under
who knows
what fucking rock have I been living?
Who knows in Mongolia?
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, there's not that many people that actually live there, so we don't know. But yeah, so he because in this part of the world, despite all the health warnings, all the regulations and recommendations against doing it, it's considered a delicacy to eat marmots.
Mm-hmm. How do you cook it? How do you prepare it?
I don't know. No idea. I can't say I'm an expert. On Sunday, the 12th of July, 2020, they issued a province-wide quarantine of that entire province
Okay.
for plague, and that's going to last till the end of the year. So I think now hunting marmots is like fully illegal. You can't do it. And the 15 people that were in contact with the boy have all been isolated and like have been tested, and they all remain healthy for now.
Yeah.
But there is a risk that the bubonic plague could have a little flare up again.
Okay.
So yeah, when I read about this, I'm like, shit, maybe this sounds interesting to learn about.
Yeah.
Rodents, as we all kind of guess, like, you know, rats and shit, they're the most like common vector of transmitting the disease.
Yeah.
But it can also be spread like from a person to a person, obviously by coughing or like contact, and also by insect bites like fleas, which is a lot of how it spread throughout Europe way back in the day.
Yeah.
Now, modern antibiotics, which is, I guess, why you thought it was extinct, like they're super effective if you treat it early enough.
Okay.
The problem with the plague is you have to basically have antibiotics administered within the first 6 to 24 hours of
Jesus,
contracting
that
it.
early.
Yeah, otherwise you have a very reasonable chance that you will die, even in the modern day.
Okay.
And of course, Mongolia, they're a thread that's common in this story of plague. In the last 90 years, up until 2018, they had recorded 692 cases of marmot-related plague incidents.
So why did they keep eating them? Are they that good?
They must be, but I think they're also like poor peasant farmers, like out in the middle of the Gobi Desert, where, you know, there's probably not that much.
If it walks, I'm gonna shoot it.
Yeah, exactly. Can I eat it? Yeah, I'll put it in my mouth.
Yeah.
So 513 of them died. That's 74% death rate in that 90 years. Like even in the modern age, since antibiotics had been found, still 3/4 of them had died.
That's worse than COVID, actually.
Way worse. My assumption here is that they were probably peasant villages who probably didn't have access to like, you know, a big city hospital, but still it's pretty hardcore. So earlier, like I said, in June, 2 people had tested positive in a province neighboring the Russian border. So Russia actually issued like a statement to all of their citizens in that area, like, do not eat the marmots, like take measures to prevent insect bites, don't go near them, don't let them touch you. Yeah, like obviously do checks for fleas and make sure, like really make sure, because they don't want, like, I guess with COVID going on as well, imagine you get COVID and then the plague just comes and finishes the rest of your population off. And one interesting thing that I didn't know is like, so yeah, like you said, you thought it was extinct, but in this province in Mongolia sees seasonal plague outbreaks, but are usually not a big concern. Like they usually have a few cases every year. Okay. You know, 10, 20 cases. Yeah. They didn't really care that much about it. And like I said, the problem is, you know, they consider it a delicacy, so it doesn't matter how much their government says, like, don't eat the marmots. People still do. Yeah, they still do.
It's like the same story, like with do you know the story of how gigantic turtles went extinct? As they never got to England because they kept eating them on the voyage back to England. Literally, it was, the meat was that good. I think there's still a couple alive or something like that on an island, and they're very protected now and shit like that.
Are you talking about the Galapagos turtles?
No, well, I don't know the exact name, but there was a species of turtles that they found, and they were gigantic fucking creatures. But the good thing was that these creatures could be used for pretty much anything on a sea voyage because their shells can hold water, and the meat is so, like, it literally fell off the bone. And so every time they did like 2 to 3 voyages, and every time they stacked a boat full of fucking turtles.
I just like, oh, I'm hungry.
And and before
that's trading 101. Can you just
imagine being that crew after the fucking last turtle was ate on the second voyage? It's like, oh god. We did it again.
And they would have been super fat, because like turtle meat is very high in fat as well.
I have no idea. I've never eaten turtle, but
it's a big thing.
It sort of reminds me of that turtle, how we almost ate an entire species to extinction because it tasted good.
Well, there's a thing like in Australia, turtles are like, we have sea turtles, and they're illegal to eat unless you're like indigenous, because it's a big thing in their culture.
Or very hungry.
Yeah, but then it's still illegal. If you're a white guy, you cannot eat them, but apparently they are absolutely delicious.
Okay, cool.
So I guess I can understand why the guys ate the giant turtles. So to come back to the plague, it's really funny that you thought it was going away or like extinct, because the World Health Organization have classed it as a re-emerging disease. Huh. Because 1,000 to 2,000 people every year get it around the world, and that does not account or even attempt to estimate the unreported cases. So obviously it could be many times higher, we don't know.
Yeah, Farmer Joe way out in the fucking country of Siberia that...
So why is it being reported now, the cases in Mongolia, since they have outbreaks every year from it?
I assume because of COVID-19. Now everyone's a bit on edge about any sort of pandemic outbreak,
fair.
and the
guess,
Russians sent out like a warning, and so did China about
But
like people bordering.
maybe there was a sort of, something that happened which it could make it leak towards another country or something like that.
Yeah.
And they just precautionary. I mean, they're not China, so they're not going to keep their information, unless it's war information, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. So I mean that and I guess as well, it's so infectious that like it's better to get on top of it early and be like, all right, we're just gonna like let everyone know it exists.
Yeah.
Like quarantine the whole province or the whole city. You cannot like go outside. You can't eat the marmots. The last thing we need in 2020 is the bubonic plague.
Oh, you watch. We're gonna have an outbreak. 2020 just finds a way to make it better.
Yeah.
At this point, it's kind of like a dad beating its child at sport. Like 2020 is just like, yeah, you fucking little shit. I fucking here's COVID-19. Here's fucking this. Here's that. Here's racial tension. Here's everything. Fuck you. Here's the plague just to finish you off. One thing, like I guess we've all heard about the bubonic plague, right? But I didn't realize there's actually 3 types of plague that are known as the plague diseases. There's 3 of them.
I had no idea as well.
Me neither. I mean, one of them, when I read the name, it's sort of like, oh, that kind of makes sense. But so the concept here is they're all caused by this same bacterium sort of family called a Yersinia pestis, which is like the bacteria that you get that infects you. So one of the types is called septicemic plague. This was fucking brutal. It causes tiny blood clots throughout the entire body, leading to possible necrosis from blood clots because parts of your body don't get blood supply. So you literally start rotting, like your flesh starts rotting. But then while it clots some of your blood, it then leaks the blood out of the blood like cell walls into your skin layer and into your organs. So then you start coughing and vomiting up blood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So half of you is rotting away while you vomit out what blood is left as well. Early treatment with antibiotics only reduces the death rate. I say only, but to 4 to 15%. So still a pretty reasonable chance that if you, even with antibiotics, you can die from this.
Yeah.
And they usually die on the first day of symptoms. So basically, once you work out you got it, you're fucked.
Yeah. How many days are we talking about here? Because the first 6 to 24 hours, 6 to 12, 6 to 24?
6 to 24 hours. That was for the bubonic plague, though. This is another plague, similar family of bacteria.
Yeah, okay. But this one is alive still as well?
Yeah, I believe. I think I saw something 1 to 6 days.
Jesus.
So it's a pretty quick and like, I mean, even with antibiotics, like modern super antibiotics, 4 to 15% death rate. So, I mean, if you didn't have it, you're basically dead.
Fuck hell. Yeah. Okay.
So
okay.
Be glad we don't live back in the dark ages.
Amazing.
So what do the other 2 look like?
The other one, well, one is the bubonic plague, and then this one, which when I read the name, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. The pneumonic plague. So I guess like pneumonia.
Oh, okay. So airways.
Yeah, exactly. So infections of the lungs, coughing, which spreads the disease.
What are the symptoms of the bubonic plague?
Yeah.
A bubonic plague feels a lot like a regular cold, apparently, from what I read.
Why do the worst things feel like the simple fucking things?
Yeah, but and then it just ramps up till it's like on steroids and you're dead. Yeah, it's maybe that's I guess why they like a lot of people die from it as well. They're just like, it's just a cough.
Yeah, it's
and then
just a cold.
2 days later they're dead.
Although I remember you saying this as well, Ali. Back when I was a carrier, I distinctly remember it was a bit different than a common cold. I mean, I had all the symptoms of a common cold, but it was like more tougher on the airways.
This is for COVID though, not
not
a plague.
So I can imagine that, a cold symptoms wouldn't be present in something else and then be something completely different. Is it a strand of COVID this then? The plague?
No, it's a zootonic virus though, or disease, which is because it comes from animals, which is the same as COVID, but it's not. It's a completely different bacteria. From what I've gathered, it's far, far worse.
Is it bacteria or virus?
No, it's a bacteria. Like it's a proper disease. Like this is a disease.
Oh.
Okay.
Because obviously COVID is a virus, which is like you can't treat it with antibiotics, while
This you have to. Otherwise,
this you have to.
well, like all three of these plague types, so you will die.
Okay, fair enough.
To go back to the pneumonic plague, so we spoke a bit about the incubate, or like how quick to get it. The pneumonic plague is real quick. Your usual incubation time is 2 to 4 days, and sometimes as little as a few hours. So basically, after being exposed to it, you will start like getting very feverish, start coughing up blood, vomiting up blood, and basically like die. You're always like constrict, and you die.
Jesus. Okay.
And yeah, death usually follows within 1 to 6 days, and if it's untreated, it has an almost 100% death rate. Like you almost cannot naturally survive it. Of course, there's a few people here and there that might, but yeah, it's almost a killing machine, basically. This one was a bit of information kind of scared me a bit. I couldn't find out which plague it was for, but they found a drug-resistant strain in Madagascar in 1995 that modern antibiotics could not stop. It just didn't give a shit.
Huh.
And they found it again in outbreaks in Madagascar in November 2014 and October 2017.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to Madagascar.
But that's the thing, is like more bacteria are getting more, like in nature, getting more resistant because of like us people. So we mentioned this in the COVID episode as well, and I talked about a little bit about it. Obviously, within the age that we're coming into, because we use so many antibiotics and we misuse them in a sense, because usually when you get a treatment of antibiotics, you have to take the whole treatment. Like if it says 14 days, you have to take them for 14 days. Even if you start feeling better at day 10, you still need to take the whole thing, because otherwise basically what you're doing is you're teaching that bacteria how to react to the antibodies, so it builds up immunity towards it.
We also put them in a lot of
in our water.
Feed them to animals that we eat.
We flush them in the toilet, we feed them to our animals. We do so much shit. Like for example, if you're a milk farmer and you have 10 cows and one cow gets sick, you don't only feed that one sick cow, you feed all of the cows antibiotics, even though they don't need them. But the only thing you cause then is for them that their body becomes like the bacteria knows how to work with the antibiotics and know how to resist them.
And we eat the meat or drink milk, and we get like mini doses of antibiotics constantly. So when your body gets a virus, it can like overcome it. So that was kind of freaky. I believe it was for the bubonic plague, but I couldn't, like the way the article was written that I read, it was a bit over the place. So it could be one of these, but I believe it was a strain of bubonic plague that's like resistant to modern drugs. Like,
well, either way, like if we don't find a solution to the problem with the antibiotic area that we're facing, bubonic plague will kill all of us, because we won't have no treatment that will work towards it, like anything. People will start dying from biting their cheeks again.
Yeah. But the thing is, I was sort of surprised, however, to find that it would take over a year. Like, can you imagine if COVID was worse than it is? Like, right now, it's just something that attacks a lot of people that already have weak immune systems and lung diseases and all that stuff. Like, it attacks people that or it seriously attacks. It attacks everybody, of course, but it seriously attacks the weaker links in the chain. Can you imagine what that must have been like with the fucking something like the bubonic plague? Like, that would be a year's time. There wouldn't be much left to save, I think. Seeing as how fast COVID spread, I can only imagine what
bubonic plague is much more infectious than like COVID.
Yeah, but that's what he's said. Like, I mean, imagine these days where you jump on a plane and you've infected 300 people in the middle of the sky, and then they go to their families, and then they go to school and work. And
it's like
it's kind of scary when I was reading about it, because I didn't know a lot of, like, I've heard about the Black Death and the bubonic plague, but I never really looked into it. I was like, it's actually way worse than I assumed it was.
Well, I was sort of already given in the zombie apocalypse episode where I asked you guys the question of how fast do you think if one person infects somebody else with the zombie virus and he bites that person. It's basically the same principle. What was it, like 3 months to 14 days, and the entire world, that means every, like, even the almost uninhibited places would have this disease. So you can imagine, if it takes us a year to come up with a vaccine for COVID-19, what it will be like if the plague would break out. So many fucking people would die.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of glad that the authorities, at least in Mongolia, are sensible, unlike the Chinese, and they locked it down pretty quick and like, all right, we need to stop, because it doesn't seem like it's gonna spread. But still, it kind of inspired me to look more into this stuff, so I thought it was kind of cool. So now some stats on just purely the bubonic plague. We very quickly mentioned the other two, but now this is the meat and bones. So the global mortality rate, if treated, is from 1 to 15%. I'm guessing maybe depending on the country you're in and your quality of healthcare, 1 to 15% if you get antibiotics, chance of dying. If it's untreated, it's 40 to 60%. So let's call it 1 in 2 chance. So if Ali and I got it, one of us is probably dead. You have to get antibiotics, like I said before, within 24 hours to prevent death. The countries with the most cases are the Democratic Republic of Congo, Madagascar, and Peru, because they have like animals naturally that actually carry this bacteria.
Peru?
Yeah, Peru has one of the highest rates of bubonic plague in the world.
Is that because they eat the kwee-kwee?
Sure, why not? Let's say yes.
Kwee-kwee.
It's was it a guinea pig, right?
Yeah, it's a guinea pig.
I mean, I guess that's a rodent, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, probably it probably actually is. Wait, we have 3 rats in our house.
Yeah.
Fuck, we got 3 plague carriers right here.
Oh yeah.
Time for them to go. The USA averages 9 cases per year since the year 1900, so it's not unknown in the Western world. But the peak of it, these countries, same with Mongolia, they keep popping up all the time because they have the marmots, which are carriers of plague. And I think they still have a lot of problems with things like fleas and stuff that obviously can spread those bites.
How did the countries that still eat like animals straight from the fucking street not learn that? Maybe it's hygiene?
I guess if you're poor,
like so much can be fucking solved with just being clean.
Yeah, but I guess
and they're not doing it because it's basically that's what it all comes down to.
Yeah, but with some viruses, like some bacteria, you can't kill even if you cook it, and I think that's the case.
But if you know that something, they've gotten written warnings like, hey, these animals.
Yeah, but you have to put yourself in the perspective of the really poor people. Like, imagine living in the middle of nowhere, don't have access to water. You barely make money enough to be able to sustain your house. Like, forget about electricity, running water, nothing. Like, it's hard to keep up. Like, fucking sometimes even for us people, we have all the accommodations that we want, but then sometimes it's hard to go and take a fucking shower because it's like, I can't be fucked. But like, imagine like not ever having the ability to be able to do that. Like, it's we can't put ourselves in that thought of mind because we'd never experienced it.
That's true. I just think as well, like in this case in Mongolia, like it's a delicacy, the food, so it's like anything, you tell someone not to do something, but if it has this mystique about it.
50-50 chance of dying, so if I have to choose between carrot soup and my life, then I'm sorry, carrot soup goes down the drain,
Then again, maybe if you're in that miserable state that you don't really care about your life, you're like, well, at least I die having one nice meal.
Maybe it's also the idea that these people have, like, oh, I'm so far away, if I get it, I'm so far away of everybody, if I get it, then I'll die, and that'll be that.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they're less attached to their life than,
Just pure speculation, really. But
yeah.
Who are we to judge, I guess? But, okay, so now there's been 3 main pandemics caused by the plague. Now, I think we all know the Black Death. That's the second one. So we're going to start at the first pandemic, which was during the 6th century, and it, severely crippled the Neo-Persian, which is like the Persian Empire back in the day, and the Byzantine Empire. Like their armies got like crippled. It ended up being called the Plague of Justinian after the Byzantine Emperor Justinian I, because he contracted bubonic plague and somehow survived after like years of treatment. Like the guy just sort of found a way to survive. It had been estimated to have killed 25 million people in the 6th century. So I mean, you think the human population, that's got to be
back then as
double-digit percentage, surely. Yeah. And they kept having like recurring outbreaks for about 2 centuries after that, so to about the year 850 or something, which estimated in that total 200 years to have killed 50 million people from the bubonic plague.
Fucking Christ,
yep.
Okay.
So it arrived in Constantinople, which is now Istanbul, in the year 542. It basically made its way from port cities, sailors with fleas and rats on board ships.
Yeah.
And it spread all throughout the Mediterranean Sea and inland towards the Asian part of what's now Turkey and all the way to like Greece and Italy in sort of continental Europe. Basically, they blame this Justinian, the emperor, because he was obsessed with like trading like wealth. He wanted the finest silks, the finest spices. He wanted to sell gold out of Turkey.
Yeah.
So basically,
AKA more boats in the docks, more sailors around.
Exactly. Only the finest for my people. We're the best empire there is. We're better than the Byzantines. Whatever.
Yeah.
And so they sort of seen as the leading exporter of the bubonic plague at the time. And a few like historians have written about him and said that it was punishment for Justinian for his sins, like God punishing him, was why the plague came to Constantinople and then spread and killed. I couldn't find the exact number, but I'm going to guess like 10% of the 20% of the world's population, something like that.
And God's doing again.
Yep, he was certainly trying again.
Man, he's punishing all the gays, I guess.
Jesus Christ.
He's doing it again, God. With COVID-19, he's punishing all the gays. There's too much gay in the world. Fucking COVID-19. Whoosh, my magic. Whoop. That's what God does, doesn't it?
What is wrong with you? Like, seriously.
There's nothing wrong with me.
He didn't write the Bible.
Stating. I didn't fucking make the rules. God does it. Yeah. You do know Sodom and Gomorrah were destroyed because there was anal sex there, right? In the Bible. You do know that. I'm not bullshitting. And not just destroyed. He fucking rained down brimfire on them.
Yeah.
He's like lava on people for anal sex.
And now, I mean, I can go on the internet right now and in 5 seconds I'll have a video up just watching it. Just jacking it.
Well, there you go. COVID-19. That's the reason.
Maybe that's why the plague's going to come back too.
That's because of people like Andy.
Probably, yeah.
So that was the first sort of pandemic. Obviously, there's not that much information about that because, it was fucking 1,500 years ago. Not really that much written documentation. But all we really need to know is it crippled the 2 biggest empires in the world and, killed a good chunk of the human population. So then we get to the second pandemic, the Black Death, the plague, the one we all kind of know, that killed 1 in 3 people in the whole European population.
Killed or infected?
Killed.
Jeez.
1/3 of all of Europe at the time. This was in the 1300s. 1/3 of all of Europe died. So in Andy's house, you got 5 people. There's at least 1, probably 2 of you dead.
2 to 3 deaths.
Yep. See ya.
Jesus. Okay.
So it hit Europe anyway in 1347. Some historians believe that society actually became more violent because of the bubonic plague, because it devalued human life, because it killed so many people. No one gave a shit about living anymore. So like people were stealing, killing each other, rising up against the governments and like tyrannical leaders and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was like an interesting tidbit that when I thought about it, I was like, kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Like I guess if half your family died, you probably don't give a shit anymore, do you?
Yeah,
whatever, like, fuck it, I want that. Like, fuck you. The origin, though, I think, which Ali mentioned in the pandemic episode, it originated in Central Asia, most likely Mongolia, again. It spread to Italy and then throughout all of Europe from there. It was believed to have started in Mongolia as early as the 1330s, so almost 20 years before it actually reached Europe. What the Mongols did was they closed off the Silk Road, which was the trading route from, Western Europe through to Asia.
Yeah.
Basically stopping all trade between China and Europe for several years, and stopped the spread from Eastern Russia across to Western Europe, like of the Bubonic Plague, until eventually it found its way there.
Yeah.
Because the Mongolians attacked Italian merchants at a trading station in the Crimean Peninsula on the Black Sea in a town called Kaffa.
Why?
Well, I don't know. They just, the Mongolians, man, they're pretty badass at war. They were just like, fuck it, this is my town now. So they basically, a siege broke out, right? And then the besiegers, they started catching plague. And obviously it just spread through the ranks, and it ended up penetrating into the township. Eventually, when the spring came along, the Italian sailors managed to escape and jump on their ships and sail back to Europe.
Well, that's a big whoopsie.
Yeah. And of course, with them brought the plague. But what the Mongolians also did, and this was fucking late. I'm sure this has happened before in history, but in one of the first ever known cases, like 100% known fact cases of biological warfare, the Mongolians put their plague-infected corpses in catapults and shot them over the city walls to kill people.
They what?
Yeah, put plague victim corpses in catapults and threw them into the city.
Oh, God, I was born in the wrong century, man. I swear to fucking God.
Yeah, it's one of the first...
I love the Mongolians.
God.
It's one of the first ever known cases of biological warfare. Like 100% fact happened. They were just flinging corpses over the walls.
Yeah, no, the Mongolians, you wouldn't want to fuck with them back in the day.
Yeah. They were good. Good bowsmen as well.
Oh, yeah. They come from a harsh climate, too. So they're harsh people. They got
good fucking weaponry. Like, have you ever checked out the Mongolian weapons?
Yeah, well, didn't they make it out of a more...
fucking brutal,
Yeah, they made, brutal short bows so that they could turn around, perfectly and shoot arrows while on horseback.
Yeah.
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 If you look at, the Japanese arrows, they're massive, but obviously, you have
bows,
to... Bows. You have to stand so perfectly still and precise, while the Mongolians shaped them so they can...
It was all about
because they lived on their horses, basically. So
the Mongolians introduced the extra curve in the bow.
Yeah, the recurve bow.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas before that, everyone just had a semicircular stick, and then they're like,
I think if I'm not mistaken, that could have probably been, I don't know for sure, but it either was Genghis Khan that came out with the recurve bow, or it was Genghis Khan that mastered that technique with the recurve bow. I don't know which one it was, but I've read 2 stories about that.
Yeah. And they just did it so they could make the bow shorter, keep the power really high, and then they could turn around on horseback without obviously hitting the horse in the head.
And they fucking worked as well.
Oh, yeah.
The Mongolian bows were fucking badass.
I think by area, I'm pretty sure they had the largest empire ever known to man. Because they basically controlled almost halfway into Europe at one point, all across Asia and Central Asia.
Yeah. But what was it? How many percent of the population nowadays has his actual blood because he raped so many people?
Allegedly, it's
allegedly
1 in every 10 people or something has you could trace it back, and Genghis Khan would be your great times 1,000 grandfather.
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be fair, he hasn't been a good dad. I haven't heard of him.
He sure has not. And his descendants just keep bringing plague to the rest of the world too. Fucking hell, stop. So he has the first ever case of known case, one of the first ever of basically flinging corpses over a city wall while during a siege. And then the Italians escaped. The merchants went back to Italy or Europe and brought the plague to Europe, where it went on to kill 1 in every 3 people over the next 50 years. It killed 25 to 50 million people in a couple decades or something. It was insane.
Okay.
Just crippled Europe. And then, so now this brings us to the third pandemic, right? So we're speaking of the first 2. The third pandemic, I'd never even heard of. It wasn't even that long ago. It happened in the mid-19th century, so 1850s, I think, it sort of originated. in Eastern Asia, most likely Yunnan in China, where they have a lot of plague-carrying animals, like just naturally, marmots and other like small
Bats.
rat type thing, probably bats, yeah.
Always the fucking bats.
But unlike COVID-19, they managed to keep it localized only in southwest China for several years before it eventually spread like throughout the world. And to show like how crippling this can be, and even like this is getting relatively modern now. Like obviously medicine had evolved a long way in the 600 years since the Black Plague outbreak. But in the city of Canton in China, which I think is now called like Guangzhou or something, it's in the southwest near Hong Kong. Mm-hmm. Between January of 1894 and June of 1894, 80,000 people had died. It had gone across because of all the water trade between Hong Kong and mainland China. It ended up killing like another 20,000 people in Hong Kong in a couple of months. It eventually made its way all the way to people in Chinatown and San Francisco between 1900 and 1904, and then the surrounding area in Oakland and the East Bay from 1907 to 1909. And during this outbreak in San Francisco, the authorities in the US made the Chinese Exclusion Act permanent. So this was a thing, I don't know if recently when COVID started, you might have heard that when the US banned foreign travel, and people tried to bring that. So this started in like the late 1800s to stop Chinese labor. Mm-hmm. From, like for cheap labor. They wanted to stop Chinese immigrants coming and taking jobs. Yeah. And it was supposed to be like a 10-year thing, and they renewed it like after 10 years for another 10 years. But then when the outbreak of the plague happened in the early like 1900s in San Francisco, they made it a permanent act. Like they tried to just ban Chinese forever from ever entering the US. Because they were like, dirty. They had the plague.
The thing is, like, you have to wonder how much would you allow? Like, what has been allowed now with the COVID-19 shit? Like, they seriously need to get their population or their hygiene under control. It needs to happen. Like, the how manyest plague is this now? Well, I don't know if you could call it plague, but like the how manyest disease is this now that we have to thanks to China?
Yeah.
But it's also like it has like in a sense that it can't help that obviously animals in their area are more likely to carry these types of viruses and bacteria, and it comes down to as well like the like poverty and stuff like that, and like what people eat and what they don't eat. So like.
Yeah.
In a sense, it's rough to say, like, oh, you have to be more clean, or, like, it's hard to say that, but at the same...
there should be standards. I mean, like, if you're living that close together, because basically, hygiene has always been the reason why pandemics started. Ever since, like...
Not hygiene. It's usually because of, like, and we mentioned this in the COVID episode as well, is that people, as we expand as a human population, we inhabitate places where we haven't inhabited before because we need to put our houses somewhere, build our apartment buildings. So we get closer to nature and we get into encounters with different animals that have these diseases. And like sometimes people can't help it at the same time. That's also what happens.
Yeah, but don't you think we would be less at risk if we were hygienic about the entire ordeal? Because like, isn't the Black Plague, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the Black Plague mainly because we kept throwing shit on the streets from buckets from the second floor, and like rats were everywhere, and like it was
rats were everywhere back then. Like it didn't matter if you were high class or not. Back then, rats were everywhere because they were harder to control. Because
rats and fleas were the big problem.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing. It's like the rats came and they brought the fleas. Because people were afraid of rats back then, and they thought, oh, the rat bites me, that's how I get the plague. No, it's from the fleas that come with the rats. It's not actually the rats itself.
Yeah, but Andy's still right. If the streets were cleaner, then you wouldn't have as many rats.
Yeah,
and
the rats wouldn't be interested.
Yeah, so it's like, what's first, the chicken or the egg?
But... what wasn't it a thing that first it was like the gray rats that brought the plague? Like, I'm not totally sure about this, but I think the gray rats brought the plague, and they were from Mongolia and all that shit.
They were Asian
they came
rats,
to they came from Europe, and then they introduced the brown rat into Europe to combat the gray rat. And the rat we have these days are like the brown rat.
Yeah.
Isn't that a thing? Which are, I don't know what it is about them, but they're like cleaner or something like that. Like more hygienic. Not that I'm saying that they're, standing in your dishwasher washing
don't go
themselves
and
or
lick
something
it.
like that. Yeah. Well, whatever your preference is, but I wouldn't.
Look, if you want
We
plague,
own
go
rats.
ahead.
We know they're not hygienic animals. Our rats, particularly, our rats are called fancy rats because they're pet rats. They're fucking not fancy. Like animals that sleep in their own piss because they think it smells good. Blech.
Yeah,
That's
the thing.
literally what they do. They're marinated in their own
And
fucking piss.
You have how many of these?
3.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks. If the bubonic plague starts again, it started in Sweden.
No, I'll let our rats out to kill the rats that have the plague. And then we'll
okay.
get new rats in
They're
like 500
attack
years.
rats. Yeah. Okay.
But I am pretty sure you're right. Like the original rats anyway, they definitely did come from Asia for the bubonic, like the Black Plague outbreak, the Black Death.
I think this is the dumbest thing. The reason I know this is because I watched the movie Ratatouille and they explain why I'm not bullshitting you.
Oh,
if you
God.
want to know which rats we have these days and why we have them, go watch Ratatouille on DVD or Blu-ray.
Don't take that as
There's like-
factual, but sure.
No. It's actually look, dude.
Is
if
it
Disney's
factual,
saying
though?
it, it's true. Yeah, no. It's. I'm not bullshitting.
Is it
If
factual,
you watch the
or
DVD,
did you just hear
yes,
it in the movie?
is. It is. I'm not bullshitting.
So after
If
you watch the movie, you
DVD
Google to make sure, like the population of rats, like how we introduced rats into our world. Did you do that, or did you
Yeah.
just base your facts on the movie?
I didn't base it on a movie. Listen,
Okay.
there's an extra on the DVD, and I think
But
Blu-ray as
see,
well.
Yes, behind
Shut
the scenes
fuck up
for,
and let
for
me fucking
Ratatouille.
talk. Yeah, there's like an extra on how rats came into introduction in the European countries and shit like that.
But you're
and
still
this is the
basing your
reason why
facts
they
on a
were
fucking kid
introduced.
movie. Like even if it's the behind the scenes, how
not-
do you trust them?
This
It's
is
educational.
this is made by Pixar. It's fact. Okay,
my
we all know
Yeah, there
anything
you
made by
go.
Pixar is a fact.
Do you ever
Yeah,
watch
'cause Toy
Ratatouille?
Story.
Alex?
Exactly. Did you ever watch the what?
Ratatouille.
No.
It's a really good movie.
It is
Yeah,
a good
sure.
movie,
If I was
though.
5.
No, actually, like, and the thing, like, one of the first, like, I think it was the third or second time I smoked weed. Like, we smoked weed, and then we
That's
later.
what they made that movie for.
No, but listen.
Dope smokers in their fucking late teens.
It's a rat controlling a human by pulling on his hair.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
how
no,
can you
but
not
that's.
smoke
But let me
weed?
tell the story. So we were sitting, like, we smoked some weed, and then we sat down on the couch, and my friends, they worked at a store, so they brought a bunch of different candies, and I was
Okay.
just like, I just saw the candy, and I went like, and I wanted to attack, and my friend was like, no, wait, and then he took like the smallest little piece of chocolate and put it in my mouth, and he said, close your eyes, and I was like, and you know that scene where like the rat's
see the
trying to explain to the
flavors?
fat rat like the explosions and fireworks, and I was just like sitting there like that was the only scene I could see in my head. I was like, that's literally like that. Oh my god. Yeah, Ratatouille is a good movie.
All
Watch
right.
it.
All right, I'll check
It is a good
out.
movie, yeah.
I'll check
If
it
not
out.
for the movie, then watch it for the extras, because you'll learn something.
Fuck off.
Yep, go and do that. So, yeah, the US banned the Chinese for, I can't remember how long, but some number of years because of this plague outbreak. The last
Yeah.
major US outbreak was in LA in 1924, and according to the World Health Organization, this pandemic was considered active until 1959, until worldwide casualties dropped underneath 200 people per year. So we've gone on for like 100 years, almost.
Wars were also a fucking cesspool of diseases, weren't they?
Oh yeah, like dysentery,
Because
plague.
wasn't it a thing back in World War II where people were that poor because every line... I remember in Belgium, my grandfather, who has now since passed, he told me a story because like he got riled up because of shit, and he would be like, oh, Granddad, can I get the salt? Well, we used to eat fucking rats back in the day. Why would you need fucking salt to put on your dinner? You know, he was one of those guys.
Yep.
And so I remember him distinctly telling me this story that they did eat rats. Like, he was in the trenches, right? He was, I'm not going to say he was a war hero because he died with a number on his arm, if you understand what I'm saying. He was in a concentration camp and shit like that. He went to a hard time, but I remember him saying that, like, because of the lines of food were cut off in the war, like, they cut everything off. The Germans just cut Belgium off of everything. They had to find food. One of the things they used to do is, like, they boiled shoelaces to get, like, the leather, to get, like, a little bit of shit out of it, and they drank the juice from that. Shit like that.
Oh, Jesus.
And when you were in the trenches, you were lucky because you got to eat rats. Because fucking rats
they were
loved
everywhere, yeah.
trenches. Yeah.
I think that was like being in the trenches was like the most dangerous thing in World War II because of disease, not even because you would be shot.
Yeah.
It was because you would just catch some disease.
No. Disease was actually worse.
Yeah, that's what we mentioned as well, like with the Spanish flu, like in World War One and Two, it's like the same thing. The trenches were what killed people. And obviously because they kept like transmitting the diseases to one another, like the virus never really mutated, it just became more deadly and killed so many of them. And obviously then from there, when they moved through villages and stuff, like it was death.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So that's sort of the end of what I have on these pandemics, but I did read one other thing that was insane. I think it was between 1937 and 1945, China and Japan had a little mini war after an incident called the Marco Polo Bridge incident.
Okay.
The Japanese, some of their commanders or whatever, commanders-in-chief, got charged with war crimes, and in there they admitted that they dropped bombs filled with plague-riddled fleas on a province in China to see if they could spread the plague. Bombs with fleas inside of them. They dropped them to see basically if they could spread the plague, and they did. They like infected some people and stuff. And they got trialed on war crimes and everything. And they just admitted, we put fleas inside a bomb with like, we knew that they had the bubonic plague, and we dropped it on some province in northern China.
What the fuck? Okay, that's weird.
Jesus Christ.
That's just weird. But actually, that should be an episode all on itself. The weirdest bombs in history, because there's been a shit ton of weird. I didn't even know they were throwing around corpses back in Mongolia back in the day. Like that's the fucking best bomb in the world. But like, there's some crazy ass fucking shit out there that they use, and it should be public knowledge. But I understand why it's not.
No.
And yeah. There's a lot of fucking weird ass shit out there. Isn't there a thing that's called the gay bomb that actually makes people gay as well? Or is that just fantasy?
I'm pretty sure that's not a real thing.
Hold on. We gotta...
I mean, maybe in Russia it's a thing, because in Russia, like, gayness is a disease. But I think in, rational places... Probably not.
The gay bomb and halitosis bomb are formal names for two non-lethal psychochemical weapons that the United States Air Force Research Laboratory speculated about producing. The theories involve discharging female sex pheromones over enemy forces in order to make them sexually attractive.
Go give him some cunt slime, boys. Let's go.
In 1994, the Wright Laboratory in Ohio...
Wait, in 94?
A predecessor to... Yeah,
that's not even that long
predecessor
ago.
to... Oh, dude, like, 94 was still like, oh, being gay is bad. A predecessor to today's United States Air Force Research Laboratory produced a 3-page proposal on a variety of possible non-lethal chemical weapon, which was later obtained by the Sunshine Project through a Freedom of Information Act request.
The fuck?
So, yeah, it may not have been a real thing, but there's definitely been... Yeah, and not only that, since they published it in a fucking report, there must have been science to it.
Oh yeah, they've probably.
There must have been a guy. What if it was a gay research scientist though? What if he was like, how can I make more people gay? Like, how can we do that, guys? Can we make more people gay?
He's just
like, make the enemy gay. Maybe they'll be nicer. Like, he my bitch. Like, he from the enemy side, but he my bitch. And I want him to be on my side.
And he's just sitting there,
what if it was
spraying like chemicals on him to see if he gets an erection. And they're like, yes, let's go. But look, I always live by the rule. If you can think it, someone has already done it. Because humans...
Rule 30... What
humans,
is it? Rule 34?
Something like that.
Rule
like,
30...
humans, if you've thought about it, someone out there has at least tried it. Like, no matter what it is.
Probably.
I mean, look, I saw an X-ray 2 years ago of a guy with a fork stuck in his dick hole. So, I mean, hey, dude, if you get like a whole fork all the way inside his penis.
This is so fucking weird. I was just gonna say... So to the people out there thinking about shoving a fork up them, you know, it's already been done. Yeah, I was just about to say this, and you're gonna... There you go.
I'm just saying, man, like...
You know.
If you can think it, someone... I mean, there's enough people out there, and has been throughout history,
look,
that they've done it.
Once you've seen one guy, one jar, you've pretty much seen anything. I mean...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean... Once you've seen that, you pretty much don't doubt there's anything shoving anything.
Why did you have to fucking visit those images in my head? Like,
it's because it needs to happen, Ali. It's part of our podcast.
It is.
It's part of our legacy.
I hate that video.
I really hate that video too.
Who doesn't? It's fucking gross. But yeah, that's all I got on the plague. Obviously, it didn't want to go too. I mean, like, you could do something on the Black Death. You could do
you could probably
podcast series
about
that
2 days.
Thing.
Yeah.
What about the squirrels in, was it Massachusetts?
Oh yeah, no, they're also in the US last week. Some squirrels in Jefferson County, I think in Colorado, tested positive for the bubonic plague. But that's reasonably common. But of course, it's a risk. Like, if your dog was to bite one, because animals can transfer to humans. It's unlike COVID-19 where your cat and your dog cannot catch COVID-19. But with the plague, they can. And obviously if they came home or they got fleas, and then you would get it. But yeah, just be aware this shit exists.
Can we just make a fucking agreement under each other? Like, every listener, like, be part of the solution, not the problem. From now on, let's not eat roadkill anymore, and let's just eat store-bought fucking meat, because those animals were bred to, unfortunately die for eating and shit like that.
Yeah, they got pumped full of antibiotics so we can fucking enjoy that steak.
Yeah, true. Well, and not only that, like, at the end of the day, that's what they're bred for, and like,
we literally made them for eating.
Yep.
Yeah. I know I'm rubbing up against the wrong leg with the fucking vegetarians, but hey, that's how it is.
We have a vegetarian listening, so...
Yeah, we do.
Whatever. That's nature.
It is a horrible business, but like, a lot of people still eat meat and shit like that. So if it needs to be eaten, then at least buy it store-bought, and
there
not
is
just
also research
something along
that
the road.
Plants can actually feel and are sentient. So I mean, eating plants is not necessarily that much better.
True.
It's just not fluffy and cute.
But hey, there is a promising outcome, and I would love to be I am a meat eater. Like, I know Ali's sister is a vegetarian. I am everything she doesn't eat, I make up for, because I'm that much of a prick. 1 and 2, I love meat.
So eat,
but like,
snack,
I'm just
like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and midnight snack.
I seriously, I'm not kidding. If I would enjoy a movie, I wouldn't mind cooking up a steak for myself.
Who wouldn't? It's the best food in the world.
It's good, right?
Best.
But like, I've been brought up by a hunter. My dad was a hunter, and like, I grew up around meat. That was just my thing. But there is something very promising to the vegetarians, if there's any listening. Apparently they've been able to extract certain things from plants that can biologically make a meat tasting that has the same, like, everything that meat has in it it can, like, they can 3D print it, sort of. So they're
doing that.
Print a slab of meat right now.
In Japan.
I've been wondering what
you can buy them already
Where?
from vending machines in Japan. You can buy burgers that
you
already
can?
have the 3D printed or the
sweet.
lab-grown meat.
I'd love to try one. I swear to God.
Yeah.
If it tastes the same way meat
exactly the
tastes,
same, apparently.
then I'm fucking down.
Apparently it's exactly
I'm
the
fucking
same.
down, I swear.
They just took like a meat like cell or something and they found a way to like make it grow. And it's like, it's food, it's meat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, I swear to God, I changed my diet in a minute just to save animals and eat meat at the same time. Like, if it tastes the same, because that's the only reason why I'm not a vegetarian.
Yeah, no, like for me, it's like vegetarians and vegans especially, like they're like, oh, but save the animals and the environment, and it's like, mate, like fucking ripping down forests and stuff so you can plant like some fucking soya to make soya-based products. Like the amount of fucking chemicals and shit that they put into the earth is so bad as well. Like, I'm not defending, like, both are bad. Like, my opinion has always been, like, we need to go for this planet to be safe, and that's my
If you
theory.
keep eating marmots, you will.
Well, at least
let's
there
eat more
needs
marmots
to be
and let's
less
kill
of
the
us.
population.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, are we ready for our goodest
We
boy
are ready.
of the?
I think it's the first one
of the
for
week.
a few weeks too.
I think there's been a couple, but it's been like random subjects. But it's gonna be the same thing. Like, actually, the goodest boy of the week is every fucking dog out there, because I'm gonna give a little piece of information and a little hint and tip to the people that are dog owners out there. Because the days are growing hotter. It's almost summer, and I thought it was very important to bring awareness to the fact that some dog owners may need to take extra precaution to protect their pets from potential fatal heart strokes. Now, British researchers determined that certain breeds, as well as those that are older and or overweight, may be more likely to suffer from heat-related illnesses in dogs than others. In general, most at risk are dogs that weigh more than 110 pounds.
It's like 40
for the
kilos
Americans.
or something.
Yeah, something like that. And also breeds with flat faces are at risk, such as pugs and French bulldogs and all that
Short
stuff.
snouted.
But they're abominations to begin with.
Well, they are fucking like
They're ugly,
what
man.
you have to
They're
go
ugly.
through. Not that the fact that they have like that they are ugly, but what happened in the past to make those breeds.
Yeah, it's
like
a disgrace.
Can you imagine a bulldog or a French bulldog descending from a wolf? If you look at the fucking
Yeah, I know,
different.
right?
No, it's true.
I wonder
it
how many
has more
pigs that
wolf
will fuck to get that to that.
Dude, it's disgusting. If there's one thing I'm pissed about in the world as far as animals goes too, it's what happens in the dog breeding world. It's
breathing
fucking
in
disgusting.
general. Like,
It's fucking.
Oh, but it looks
It's
cute. Like your
horrible.
dog literally cannot breathe. Like it doesn't matter if it looks cute; it can't breathe.
It's horrible. It's
Yeah.
horrible.
yeah.
Sorry,
so what
go
can
on.
you do to
All right,
prevent?
so it's just mostly keeping them inside and not going for walks or too long of walks. Also, the cushions of your dog's pets of your dog are not impenetrable. So if you can't walk on the sidewalk, then your dog can't walk on the sidewalk. If you want to know if it's too hot for your dog, take off a shoe, take off a sock, put your fucking foot on the sidewalk. If it's too hot for you, it's too hot for your dog, period. There's no reason to go walking to your dog and giving him misery if he's going to be in pain for 20 minutes straight. So don't walk your dog if you can't walk the pavement.
Yeah, I would
period.
recommend.
So that's the best way to find it
I
out.
would recommend walking either early in the morning or late afternoon for longer walks.
We'll put him in the car and drive
exactly.
him to a grassy thing where they can
No,
run around.
fuck that. You're a dog owner. You took the responsibility of taking in a
Oh, yeah,
pet.
but
Just
take
fucking
him to a dog-
take it for a walk at 6 a.m.
Take him to a dog park or something where they can play on the grass with other dogs.
Yeah, true as well. All right, but the breeds identified as highest risk of a heat stroke were Chow Chow, the very fluffy animals. Which, makes sense. They're from colder countries. So, I think Chow Chow is actually from somewhere around Siberia. The bulldog, the French bulldog, the dog du Bordeaux, the greyhounds, the Cavalier, King Charles Spaniel, so that, the pug, the golden retriever, and the Springer Spaniels. So these are the dog breeds. If you have one of these, just be careful around summertime and around heat, especially because like Chow Chows, for example, were 16 times more likely to develop heat stroke compared to Labradors. Now, I would recommend to all dog owners, consider if your pet is at increased risk of heat stroke, because like it's so important for these animals. You're living with them, you decided to get them in your home as a pet, then you should at least take care of them as you should.
Yep.
So the Goodest Boy segment of the week goes to all the dog owners out there that do put their own foot on the pavement first before their doggy's paws go on the pavement and feel around for heat and shit like that.
And any animal in general, you should be careful around. Like for example, we have rats, and obviously like it's hard for them to keep cool, and we can't put a fan to cool them down because they have such a sensitive respiratory system. They can really they contract infections much easier. So what we do, if Alex moves his head a little bit, you see on top of the cage, like we put ice bottles or ice stuff and put them in a tray and then cover them.
Down.
So it becomes like an ice like AC for them.
It's a good idea for rabbits as well, like rabbit and guinea pig owners and shit like that. So put something cold. The cold always goes down.
Yeah, put a towel or something on top of it as well to push the air down.
So if you put something cold on top of your cage, you'll make the cage itself go colder because like it's like a tray that catches the cold that comes down, which is actually a good idea.
It is. And now, Batman.
All right.
I want you to tell us the Instagram, please.
Yes. Come and follow us at our Instagram at @random.podcast.
Oh, she did it right first time. Ding, ding. And at Twitter, it is @_randompod.
Oh, yeah. And if you want to watch us every week live as we record this show, just as Bella, the sister of Ali, did during this episode, which you didn't hear, but she was present throughout the entire episode, you can check us out on Discord, which is an app that you can listen to us. And like if you chat to each other there, we'll probably hang out there as well and answer your questions or answers anything you may or may not say. If you want to do that, then click the link in the show description down below and you'll be able to get into our Discord server.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll get inside your ear holes next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.